Hello, everyone. My name is Laura. I'm the chair for the session today. We will be just waiting 2 more minutes because we know many participants are still on the break between sessions. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank for the sponsors of this event. While we wait, we'll have our microphones off, but we'll start shortly. Thank you very much for joining us. So, hello everyone. Good day wherever you are. As I mentioned, my name is Laura. I'm here on behalf of the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence. I also work at a Brazilian NGO for knowledge translation called Instituto Veredas. And I'm joined here today by Siziwe, our colleague from Africa Evidence Network, and Dubar Osorio from the Evidence Hub for Latin America and the Caribbean. Our colleague Jorge Barreto from EVIPNet Americas is joining shortly. And today we thought it would be nice for this broadening horizons and connecting stakeholders, the experience of evidence networks in the global south, to invite you all to be part of a conversation with us. We are here with two networks that have been around for a long time. The Africa Evidence Network just turned 10 years old. The VIPNet Americas has been in the region for almost 17 years now. And the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence and the Evidence Hub for Latin America and the Caribbean are just two recent networks that are 1 year old now. So we really want to learn together and understand how to best collaborate. So each one of us will pose a quick question for the other to answer, questions that we really want to know from our practice. And then we'll have some minutes, and I strongly advise you to use the Q&A for us to answer as many questions as you have about this network functioning, how we relate to each other, and how do we see this role of evidence networks in the global south. So without further ado, The first person to pose the question is Duber. So Duber, you're welcome to open your mic and pose a question for Siziwe.
Yes, of course, Laura. Thank you so much for your introduction. I'm so glad to be here, and it's an honor to be here sharing with you. And my question to Zisiwe is what have been the main challenges, learnings, and achievements in the process of building a continental network of evidence-informed decision making in these 10 years of Africa Evidence Network, specifically on issues such as funding, collaboration, support, stakeholder participation, positioning, and consolidation. And I would like to say congratulations for your 10th anniversary.
Thank you very much, Duba, for your question. It's really like a great honor to be part of this panel and be able to share some expertise and be able to answer your question. So I think I would begin just by saying, I think you've just mentioned that the AEN just celebrated its 10th year anniversary, and we're a broad community of diverse individuals who share sort of a vision and a mission together. And I think most importantly, as the AEN, we believe that only together can evidence-informed decision making can become a reality, because power and knowledge for change is ultimately contained within relationships. So that for us is really important. And in terms of the challenges, I'll start with the challenges. I think with the continent, there are so many languages that are spoken, and most of our members come from different parts of the continent. So one of our challenges is language. So we've started slowly just to incorporate French in some of the pieces of work that we do, but I think we need to be more deliberate in how we are more inclusive in terms of language that is spoken in the continent, so that all our members can be able to partake in the work that we do. And also, I think another challenge is the demand from our members. The AEN is now at more than 4,000 individual members. So how do we ensure that we are able to meet the needs of the 4,000 members and be useful to them and also contribute into the ecosystem? So that's something also that is a challenge, but we work on it on a daily basis to make sure that we get better at meeting some of the demands of our members. And then another challenge will be funding, because it's not easy to tell people that you are a network of these individuals and you want to support evidence and you will get funding easily. It's a challenge to get funding for this type of work, but we continuously make sure that we do better with the work that we do. And I think COVID for all the organizations, I guess, became a challenge because most of the things were shut down. So now we're starting to rebuild again to start going as different networks. And I think also the ability to adapt to our environment and respond to our members, that ties into that demand that I've also reflected on. And I think those are some of the challenges that we've had. In terms of the learnings and reflections, I will include learning and reflections on our side. The network has a number of learning loops to help guide our work. We regularly review, reflect on our member inputs gathered through a broad spectrum of consultation approaches. We consult our governance structures, which is the advisory group and the reference group, which is the first key point of contact. And then we also get feedback from our AEN members through the annual member survey to make sure that we always learn from what we are doing and improve on an ongoing basis. And also, I think the network has benefited enormously from an action learning approach. We pilot our activities, we reflect upon them, and adapt accordingly. So that has been something that has been a great learning for us as the AEN. And I think one of the most striking lessons is that the funding landscape for evidence ecosystem shifts all the time. So there's an increasing competition among those working in the space. So how do we make sure that we're able to reflect on this? How do we collaborate more than compete with one another? And also this environment has strengthened our resolve as the AEN to ensure that the network serves a common good as a network by and for its members. And our strategy and activities aim to reflect this common purpose. So those are some of the lessons and reflections that we've done over over time. And I think also Dubai spoke about achievements. I think with the AEN in the past 10 years, we've never saw it coming that will be at 4,000 members to date. So that's the greatest achievement, to have these individuals that share a vision with us. And then our strategic regional events. We've hosted more than 5 events, Evidence 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, and now Evidence 2023 happening in Uganda next year. Hope all of you'll be there. And we also launched Africa Evidence Week 2019 and 2021, a webinar series as well. So with these events, we really, were able to collaborate with a lot of partners, individuals, to strengthen the work that is done. And I think over time, we launched some initiatives like the Stories of Change that gathered how the AEN has supported individuals' work, organizational work. So we have a big gallery of these stories. And I think during COVID, we did an EIDM during COVID page where people were sharing the evidence that they are collecting as we're trying to grapple with COVID during that time. We do a lot of blogs and publications because content is the most important thing within the AEN, so people can learn from one another. And I think we also had a great opportunity to spotlight individuals and organizations, people that might not have an opportunity to be known within the sector. And we have successfully connected and collaborated with different individuals across the continent and beyond. And in 2018, we launched our Africa Evidence Leadership Award. We now have 7 winners and 9 runners-up. So that's an alumni that we have, and we are launching a mentorship program with them, a light touch mentorship program, so they can share their expertise with other people. And we also launched a manifesto of capacity development for EIDM in Africa as a tool of collaboration among AEN members. So that's something that we really use to make sure that we collaborate with one another. And I think this year we launched communities of practice because the AEN is huge. 4,000 people cannot engage at once together. So we're forming small groups of people interested in similar activities. So that has really been going great. And I think that's the direction that we are taking now, to make sure that people work in different groups that are interested in something similar to make sure that they benefit from this. Our mentorship program, we're mentoring new and emerging organizations and network. So it's really going great with this particular program. And I think mostly we participated in other EIDM global events just to make sure as well. We participate and share more about the AEN and find out who else was in the ecosystem. And most importantly, engaging with the AEN members and become member-driven, because that's something that is really critical. This is not our network. It is our members' network. So it's something that is really important. So I'll touch just on a few parts around funding and sustainability. And I think we are deliberate with building lasting relationships with donors, potential donors. We have a funding strategy. We are supported by our governance structures. Innovation and mutual learning is something that we're looking at in terms of being funding or financial sustainable as the network. But it's a difficult journey, but on an ongoing basis, we make sure that we take a few steps to make sure that we're able to succeed. And in terms of collaborations, I think our relationships are at the center of the work that the AEN does. We collaborate with a lot of organizations across the continent and make sure that our voices are heard together. And we support each other, and stakeholder participation is important to us. We support individuals in many ways, and they support us back. And we did a stakeholder analysis in 2019, just to understand who is in the ecosystem. So to deliberate in building with the different stakeholders and invite them to our events and go to their events so that we mutually learn from each other and build these lasting relationships, because that is really something that is important. And I think positioning and consolidation, understanding the ecosystem and developing our own strategic plan and having our own governance structures and ensuring that we are member driven, is something that has set us apart from where we were earlier during the development of the network and where we are now. So that's something we've learned so much, and we continuously learn from this process. As we implement our strategy, we sort of reflect on it and learn from it and strengthen it to make sure that we are better at the end of the day as the Africa Evidence Network. So I hope, Juba, this response is good enough for your question that you've just posed to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siziwe, and your amazing work in the African Evidence Network. You're amazing. You are a
Thank you.
kind of inspiration for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Siziwe, now you're welcome to pose your question.
Okay. My question is, what has been the challenges and successes of the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence in the last year? Because you are new in the field. And also, what are you most looking forward to in the next 10 years?
Thank you so much, Siziwe. So the first thing, many people ask us how we created the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence and why we created it. And the first thing I wanted to share is just how simple it was to connect with the colleagues that are working in the evidence ecosystem in Brazil. We just circulated an initial Google form and asked people if they wanted to be a part of the network, what kind of subjects they were working on. We were alongside Fiocruz Brasilia, the National School for Public Administration, a state government research team in the Distrito Federal, and the Brazilian Ministry of Health and Veredas were together just thinking how can we bring together this field of actors that are working with knowledge translation, that are working with evidence production and use, and that are intersectoral, so they don't belong exactly in a sectoral network. They really need to be connected because they're working with themes such as education, the criminal justice system, labor market inclusion, health. So how can we bring these people together and support each other's work? And this was during the first year of COVID. So we are all in our homes or working remotely for sure, and wanted more than ever to connect and to optimize our resources and our works. And it was this simple, just launching this form online, and people all over the country responded to it. We had initially 65 response for different organizations saying they would like to join and be part of a coalition. They really wanted to work together. And during this first year, so we started having meetings in April 2021. We just have one great environment of people sharing what they are doing, understanding connections that are possible, starting to working together more. This is quite exciting for us. We also have in Brazil 5 big regions. We have 2010 million people living in the country today. And we often see some of these regions are overrepresented and some of the regions are underrepresented. So we're able to start with the help of Sandy Oliver and her team at Epicenter, autoethnography process to understand how different teams came together in different regions, what were the motivators, what were things that push people to be working together or to be working in some kind of specific topics in the evidence world. And also, we started conducting some situation analysis for each region in Brazil to understand the evidence ecosystem. So we were able to start mapping evidence units and knowledge translation platforms, both in the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judiciary branches. The civil society organizations also have many K2Ps now in Brazil. We also, of course, have most of our evidence units and K2Ps in universities. So it's quite a diverse and exciting environment to be in now, and we really wanted to make every region in Brazil have this kind of debate going on for different sectors. And during this year in 2022, and I would highlight this as one of our biggest wins, as a coalition, were able to update an online course for introductory course for evidence-informed policy making and evidence synthesis. Last year, we did a soft version to train people within the coalition. And this year, we were able, because we got some funding from peers for scholarships, to offer this course for over 100 people in Brazil. And our main focus was making this course equity driven. So we focus in the two regions in Brazil that are currently most underrepresented in terms of evidence units and debate. There is the North and Northeast region. And we also focus on a public of participants that are diverse in terms of gender and race and sectors of education. So we just finished this course. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was a totally online course with mentorship throughout the course. And really focus on the debate of how can evidence improve equity in different sectors. The subjects that the students chose to develop their exercises in evidence synthesis were super diverse and reflected the diversity of the students themselves. And we are also able to make 4 inclusive, accessible videos that have audio description, that have sign language translation at the same time, and that really explain the key concepts of evidence-informed policymaking and evidence synthesis in a much lighter, simpler, accessible way. And this was highlighted by the students as a great material that they are able to use multiplying this content in their own regions. So we are very, very proud of this. I would highlight as one key challenge for the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence is just that maybe two key challenges there is just that most of the people that are part of the coalition, they are super busy, super generous people that are in many projects at the same time. So how we can really train more people to come to this field and not make just 20, 30, 40, 100 people all the time being called for every project because they are the only ones who are trained in these tools. So we have people who are very, very busy, who are very, very tired as well, and are in different sectors. So not always we can put people together working because some of them are really more focused on health, some of them are really more focused on the criminal justice system. So we had to develop a strategy that everyone keeps having a conversation in our general meetings, but we also have space to create small thematic working groups. The other key challenge, of course, and you know this very well, Siziwe, is just that chairing a coalition, and right now Instituto Veredas, the organization I work for, is chairing the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence, is a lot of work. We have a lot of administrative work concerning organizing the monthly meetings, inviting people to present their works. We have a lot of materials that we produce together that we want to circulate. Right now, we are able to work on our newsletter and our website and just developed a logo for the coalition. So it's a lot of background work that is needed to make the coalition connected, collaborative, and also to gain legitimacy in the Brazilian territory that, as I mentioned, is super diverse and huge. So this is a lot of work, and we often hear people saying, "Oh, but networks, This was such a 2000 conversation. Right now we are in a whole different page, and there is not so much support for this sharing and administrative part of network and partnership building. And we really are keen to keep doing this work, but it's a lot of hard work. And I think this is something we have to understand, how much building relationships, building trust, specifically intersectoral relationships, even in a country. If we go international wise, is even bigger. Is so work demanding and time consuming, and something that people see value. We have a lot of people that keep coming to the coalitions meetings just because they understand how it makes their work better, to be connected and to not overlap efforts with other organizations in the country. But it's a lot of hard work that needs support and funding. And of course, in Brazil, we all speak Portuguese, so this is quite exciting. But to tell our stories and connect with colleagues from Latin America and colleagues from Africa, we always also have to be mindful of translating what we are doing. Um, and this I would highlight. But we are very happy that the coalition now is 1.5 years old and thriving and being able to really build capacity and touch people's hearts all around the country. So we're super proud of this. Thank you for the question, Siziwe. I now have a question for Georgie. Georgie, hopefully you are able to hear me okay. Um, George is here, as I mentioned, representing EVIPNet Americas. He'll be able to speak a little bit more on the overall functioning of EVIPNet Americas. But my question for you, Georgie, is how is EVIPNet Americas able to integrate both actions in a global strategy, because EVIPNet is a global network, and in the national level? And how have the many capacity building efforts to the region of Americas changed over time, and how it helped to foster a regional network for health? So it's one question with many sub branches, but I'm very curious on
Yeah.
how you got this regional and national presences.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for your question, and nice to see you all, guys. Yeah, I can respond to this question on behalf of the EVIPNet Americas team led by Dr. Ludovic Reves, based in Washington, D.C., in Pan American Health Organization. Well, knowledge translation processes imply that decision makers can use the evidence results resulting from the research, scientific research, without prejudice to other types of evidence. So, the knowledge translation processes requires mechanisms and processes, and these are needed because they can frame it within ecosystem, actually an evidence ecosystems. The ecosystem is a key factor to contribute to better use of evidence, and include financing, production, and use, including dissemination, of course, and the use of different types of evidence. So the Evidence Informed Policy Network, the EVIPNet, you all know EVIPNet, was created in 2005 by World Health Organization in global level, and in order to provide a knowledge translation platform aimed and closing the gaps between the research and the use of research in different levels of health decisions, and improve health outcomes, of course. EVIPNet Americas is a regional chapter of EVIPNet Global, and it also considers that evidence-informed policies and knowledge translation are inseparable. Inseparable? Exists this word? I think yes. Inseparable from the ecosystem of evidence to address the challenges associated with bridging the gap between generate knowledge and produce good decision making. Just EVIPNet Americas was created in 2007, coordinated by Pan American Health Organization. Its mission is to promote formation of a network of partners, national partners, to strengthen health systems and policies and improve health outcomes in use of scientific research, different contexts. Each country belonging in the EVIPNet Americas has work teams with different structures, work process, and results. EVIPNet Americas also has experts. For example, I am a consultant a couple of years, and I have been supporting the network activities and introducing innovations to improve knowledge translation processes in time and quality. In just in 5 years after its launch, EVIPNet Americas was present in 12, around 12 countries in our health region, and held workshops, trained a lot of people, generate policy documents, evidence briefs, for example, and organized deliberative dialogues. 15 years after its launch, EVIPNet America continues to seek the integrate to use of evidence for practice in health systems, services, and policies through evidence ecosystems to reinforce and to establish good connections in the evidence ecosystems. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic created new and huge challenges with a high need to produce, disseminate, and use research results at all levels of decision-making health. These have been brought into global consideration at the Global Evidence for Policy Summit, organized by EVIPNet Global in 2021, culminating in an EVIPNet call to action that has included the strategies for the institutionalization of evidence-informed policymaking in countries, recognizing the need to refresh and to innovate the networks on structure and processes, and as well as foster new intersectoral alliances for the development and support of evidence ecosystem. I think you present about coalition, and I think Brazilian coalition for evidence is a good example of these new arrangements to knowledge translation networks. So a fundamental step to achieve sustainability in the countries is to structure strong local teams with representation of the directly interested parties, such as the national health authorities or the representatives, science and technology councils, or individuals and academic people and research community, and of course civil society and members of civil society organizations. The most frequent activities that the teams of EVIPNet Brazil develop in each country include capacity building and empowerment of decision makers, researchers, and members of civil society for evidence-informed policy making support through the development and implementation of learning processes, including face-to-face workshops or online and remote or distance activities and courses, for example. But we have some products like evidence synthesis for health. Before we called policy briefs. Today we call evidence briefs for policy. And that's a very, very common product of EVIPNet. And organized policy dialogues or deliberative dialogues for national and subnational, including local contexts. And other activities include the facilitation of issues prioritization processes with decision makers and the other stakeholders, and the updating methods and methodological standards. At the end, we have other activities like development and implementation of national and regional operational plans. In this moment, we are planning to implement a new operational plan for EVIPNet America in our region, and of course, report all the achievements, including discussion, dissemination, and exchange products in our network in order to promote the transparency. Um, any team working in any country and territory is ready to participate in our network activities and can join EVIPNet Americas if they meet some criteria. For example, the team has already been established, including the list of policymaker or decision makers, researchers, and the ideal list includes civil society representatives. So the team also should have any experience in relevant areas such systematic reviews and preparation of practice guidelines, health technology assessment, and other ways of knowledge translation and development of policies and support planning of health programs and policies. To join EVIPNet, it's just necessary to complete an EVIPNet application form and send to the regional coordinator, Dr. Ludovic Reves. I can provide the emails and the link for this form. And actually, we can invite our audience today to know more about EVIPNet Americas and to join us, including our colleagues from Coalition, our colleagues from HubLac. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jorge. I can see already one question from Jose. Thank you, Jose. In the end, now we'll answer your question about how to work, connect, and collaborate with policymakers. But I would like to ask anyone in the audience who wants to send questions, you can send them. Jorge, what is your final question to Duber, please?
My question for Dube, hi Dube, is the Latin American and Caribbean Evidence Hub, the LAC Evidence Hub, is an innovative and inclusive initiative to advance in order to identify needs and obstacles in the regional evidence-informed policymaking ecosystem in different sectors of social policies. My question is, what are the main activities carried out and how is the LAC Evidence Hub planning its strategy for the future? How far do you think we can go, considering the overreaching goals that have been embraced by this initiative?
Well, thank you, George, for your question. Well, I think that there are two main topics I would like to address to cover my answer. And I would like to talk about the different topics to try to answer your question. The first topic is related to the question, what are the main activities carried out in the hub? I think that one of the main activities or achievements have been the creation of the hub itself as an organization, bearing in mind that we are talking about bilingual, multinational, and remote team of people who, for the most part, we had never before met, let alone work together in their lives. And I think that the construction of our organization is one of the most of the main activities we've carried out. We have the challenge, as I said, because we have a highly diverse group of people from various backgrounds, countries, sectors, working remotely. So we had to create an organization in that context with its own identity. We were finding, exploring, and consolidating processes within the organization to give the best of ourselves to the LAC region. I think that's one of the most important activities we carried out in the hub. Now we have a governance structure to our organization, so we want that our collaborators feel comfortable. We have an expert committee composed by champions of experts in evidence-informed decision making from our region in Latin America and the Caribbean. And you're part of this committee, George, and we are so proud to have you in this committee. two in terms of organization and online knowledge management and project management platform, Notion. And we have two, the product services and actors profile guide document. And we have the honor to receive mentorship from our partners from Africa Evidence Network, ACA, K2P, UCL, peers, and we are working together with other organizations like On Think Tanks, uh, planning every Semana de la Evidencia, which is a big event in November. And of course, we have a lot of support for our funding organization, Instituto Veredas in Brazil, Universidad de Antioquia in Colombia, and the Unit of Evidence at the Ministry of Health in Chile, as well as our strategic partner in the Caribbean Center for Health System Research and Development at the University of West Indies. And in relation, I talked about the activities related to our organization, and I would like to talk some in relation to the activities from the hub to outside. And currently, we have been working on mapping actors, producers, and users of evidence. We are building currently a database of actors. We have a database of nearly 200 individuals representing over 150 organizations throughout the region, and many of which have been already taking part in the evidence-informed decision-making sectors. We have developed two workshops in August and October with more than 100 participants. We will have our next workshop in a few weeks, and we will probably have the first regional event in November, our big event in November. And in relation to research processes, we are working on the construction of a glossary of terms. And we have this glossary in Spanish, Portuguese, and English. And we work on 3 evidence ecosystem reports, country reports, including areas like health, education, and public security. We have country reports from Colombia, Brazil, and Chile, and we're currently working on 3 more, Bolivia, Mexico, and Costa Rica, and 3 more reports on the Caribbean countries, as Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Barbados, all are also on the horizon. We want to map all the ecosystem evidence in our region. And we created our visual identity. We have social networks such as LinkedIn profile, and we publish our network, our newsletter, in which we share information related to our organization and other evidence-informed policymaking organization and activities. This is one of the most important activities related to our organization. Well, now the second big topic is related to the other matter I identified in your question. How is Hub Black planning its strategy for the future? I think that's a very important question. Well, we will continue to offer collaborative workshops for mapping challenges and opportunities in evidence ecosystems throughout the region. The next one will be geared towards actors in Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and Jamaica. So I can include the regional event too, which is our big event. We are so proud to have this big event or regional event in which we want to continue showing the organization as a network of networks. This is very important. Uh, we are a network of networks that wants to articulate and mobilize actors in our region. This is our vision. And in this case, our planning to the future is based on the feedback from our collaborators and partners, the feedback from experts and actors who participated in the workshops and who will participate in the regional events. We will have a specific moment to think, to talk about this planning in this event. Of course, we want to listen to about doubts, challenges, cases of success, needs, opportunities of collaboration, and all these to improve our organization from the inside, but also from the inside out. And in fact, planning collaboratively, creating our planning for and with actors involved in evidence-informed policymaking and knowledge translation in our region. So we have some challenges, of course, this is a real fact. And some of them are related to consolidate the hub as a recognized and strengthened organization characterized by love for our region, scientific rigor, collaboration, and effective communication. So we want to keep using our communication channels, particularly our newsletter and social media, the most we can to showcase all the amazing work that is being done in our region. So we also hope to involve partners more closely in the planning, as I said, and facilitation of workshops, tapping into the pool of expertise which we know already exists in our network. Of course, another challenge is funding, and we are actively looking for ways to raise and maintain resources for the organization. And finally, I think that the third big topic and the last topic associated with the question, how far do I think we can go? This is a very interesting question to George. And well, I think I'm convinced in my team, because I'm representing my team, uh, evidence really matters. Knowledge translation matters, and collaboration in your region really matters. It's very necessary. Our region needs the hub. This is a real fact that we verify in the workshops and country reports. We we still have having a gap between producers and evidence. We have now a gap between producers of evidence and users of evidence. We have a gap. We have problems associated with the availability of resources to evidence-informed decision-making process. We have problems and needs for institutionalization of evidence-informed decision-making process. And in development, we need to develop evidence-informed decision-making in other areas beyond the health sector, and among other challenges we have. That in fact, there is a shared responsibility to create and maintain a network of networks, as I said, that give a hand. We want to give a hand to our colleagues and connect them to give their hands to other colleagues and so on, to create a real and collaborative network, because we know that the life of those who want to solve collective problems in Latin America and the Caribbean is not easy. For this reason, George, I think that we can go as far as we want because we need it, because we can together, articulating and mobilizing actors, researchers, policymakers, civil society, fostering the growth of and consolidation of a network of diverse actors with complementary knowledge and capable of promoting evidence-informed policymaking in the region, in our region, strengthening knowledge and capacities of actors and building legitimacy and relevance in the evidence-informed policymaking scenario in Latin America and the Caribbean, having consolidating processes and presence. This is my answer.
Good. Thank you, Deborah. Good to see you have more than good intentions. You have a strategic plan, and that's good to know. I think we have three very important elements, including this plan: is coordination, strategic coordination, capacity building, in not just in one direction, but in a good direction to improve capacity in local, national level to knowledge translation for all the policies. And the last one, and for me, the most important is opportunities to work together. I think working sharing is a very important component of all initiative. Thank you for your response.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, everyone. So when we build this session together, the idea of talking of how evidence networks are being conducted and building itself in the global south, I think we can see some shared elements of the importance of being member driven. That is something that Siziwe highlighted very much, and that connects a lot with what Duber is saying about how in the workshops the Evidence Hub for Latin America and the Caribbean has heard from diverse stakeholders in the region the importance of catering the hub's activities to their needs and to best fit their plannings and their actions, both in the national and regional level. And Jorge, of course, brings this great experience of EVIPNet Americas of reinventing itself as the years go by. So using a lot of willpower to develop leaderships in this field, and then capacity building all around the region, and making sure that the capacity building is both connected to a global strategy for evidence-informed policymaking, but also national level context sensitive response. So we all share, of course, the challenges of languages. We have diverse regions that speak different languages, and this is always hard because people, to find a common ground, often need to go to a language such as English that doesn't most of the regional members are not proficient in. So it's quite exciting to see the creative solutions the Global South is developing. I have these two questions here that were posed to us in these 9 minutes that we have. So please, I'll ask colleagues to answer them in 1.5 minutes. So the first question is from Jose Torres. Thank you, Jose. To understand a little bit more on how do we work, connect, and collaborate with national and local level policymakers. And then we have another question by Braden Beckius, specifically to Siziwe, about the challenge of convincing stakeholders to collaborate as opposed to compete with each other. So what are the biggest obstacles in achieving this collaboration spirit in such a diverse continent, and what were the strategies that you use for that in AEN? So we have 8 minutes, so let's try to answer these questions in 1.5 minutes each and say our goodbyes to this wonderful audience. Siziwe, you may go.
Collaboration is it's a journey. As you build a relationship with different stakeholders, understanding how they work, what they need, and so to be able to connect them to the correct individuals that they will benefit from, that has the same understanding. From our side, it took us a long time because, when you build relationships, it takes you long. And when those relationships are built, then you know how to make people collaborate. One strategy that we used, 2020, we had working groups. We identified individuals from different groups to say, we're going to work on this event. It's a working event, and we are going to bring together, establish working groups before the event, during the event, and post the event. So they were forced to work together for a period of 3 months and build that program and deliver it, and also post that event. So you can figure out, so one of those working groups are still together now. They have now a community of practice. So that's one example to say these things take a long time. You can be, you need to put in so much time in making sure that people collaborate with one another. And during conferences, people are like, no, I want to start to speak to a certain person, and nothing happens until maybe they are put in a corner. They want to write a proposal and they're stuck. And now they come back to you, please connect me again to this person who's running workshops on fundraising or proposal writing. So is that kind of working together, building those relationships over time, finding people that have the same interest as you and begin to work together. And also share those experiences and expertise, because I believe in that learning and reflection process. Because we're learning and reflecting, we felt that, okay, we had 3 working groups, one survived and went through sort of a second phase of being a community of practice on capacity development. So these things are possible, but they need time.
Thank you so
Laura.
much, Siziwe. Jorge, do you want to comment on how you work and engage with policymakers at
Sure.
national and local?
Sure. At the beginning, EVIPNet was focused in national level, but even the knowledge is global. Your use always is local. It's like the policies. The policies is formulated in national level, but implementations at local level. So today we are in EVIPNet America very open to establish connection with local groups, including, of course, national groups, but local groups too. And we are encouraging the groups from another sectors, for example, health technology assessment, guidelines development, to establish connections with EVIPNet Americas. In the next days, we will have a more structured document to have some orientations about how you can take part in EVIPNet Americas, and we hope you all can establish this connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Duber, do you want to comment on how you are engaging with policymakers in the hub?
Yes, I think that one of the main activities is that we are mapping actors in the region. We have participants from government sector. We have participants from research and academic sector, and I think that one of the things we do to engage with policymakers is mapping this as not making the connection, try to connect policymakers with academia. We have a map, we have newsletter, we have workshops, and we have participants from different government sectors in different countries. And we are mapping it, and we are showing information, we are sharing information. And I think that this is one of the first steps to connect people, to engage policymakers with evidence producers, mapping and sharing activities and different publication and topics related to this.
Thank you so much. I'll comment quickly in this question from Jose. In the Brazilian Coalition for Evidence, we do actually have policymakers as part of the coalition. So some government evidence units are part of the coalition. Some people who are working both at the local and the national level, city and state or national level, are part of the coalition. But one thing that I always say is that I used to be a public servant in the Ministry of Health, and I felt so alone and so judged and so under supported to do my activities. So at least in Veredas and all the projects we also do in the Coalition for Evidence, we really reach out to policymakers from scratch and ask them, what do you need? How can we help you? What are the problems you are facing? How you are framing these problems? Evidence can help you in any way, shape, or form to understand and better tackle these problems. And people really are excited to join these knowledge translation projects from start, help us understand better the problems, give us access to all kinds of information. And one lesson that we learn over time is that often people focus on the high level policymakers, but if you focus on the mid-level policymaker, in Brazil we do have a huge public service full of public servants, both at national, state, and city level, and you focus on these people that actually are part of the institutional memory and will be there for many, many years, you do observe major changes. So it's not only the high level people that have the decision making power, because decision making in policy is done every day, all day, by mid-level policymakers. So maybe reach out to these people and focus with them on understanding the problem, sharing the ways you are looking for solutions, and of course, as George mentioned, carrying out the most simple, accessible policy briefs and materials you can to engage them and facilitate the decision-making process. I think this is a great way, and it has worked a lot in Brazil to bring more people into this community. So we have just 1 minute left. It's passed really quickly. I'm very happy to be in this environment with such nice colleagues. I hope for the audience who was here today and will see the recording afterwards, you get excited about this. As Siziwe mentioned, Africa Evidence Network carries out events. The Evidence 2022 just happened, and we have very exciting in Uganda, the next Evidence event coming, so stay tuned to that. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, Caribbean, we are having in November an online meeting, a great regional meeting called Enlace. The website maybe is in the comments, you can access, but I can put it afterwards. And you are most welcome to join us and keep thinking these connections between Global South, similarities, creative ways we are able to upgrade this evidence debate in our evidence networks, very relationship based. So thank you, Siziwe, Jorge, and Duber. Hope everyone is excited to be in this What Works event. Thank you, organization team, for the space you've given us, and we'll keep following this wonderful program during the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for having us. Thank you.